vincontroller.eu. Check vehicle history for every used car in Europe. Welcome to another Boostmania International video. Today we'll find out what condition the PT Cruiser is in. Can we even start it, or should we just bring it to the junkyard? I really hope we don't have to. Now you can be the witness to our perverse hobby of sticking money into old shitboxes, just like the PT behind us. But let's be serious for a minute. We're hoping the first checkup goes pretty well, because we're planning to use this as our show car. And not just for us, but our partners as well. Don't worry, there's a lot left to do on this car. But the first step is to find out where is the starting line. And since we had to tow the car to get it here, and push it all the way to this post lift, I'm guessing we're not in for any good news. Yeah, when we were pushing the car, it was resisting quite a bit. Firstly, that's the deflated tires, but it could also be the seized brakes. I think I saw some sparks flying from them. Anyways, the car is ready on the lift, and in a minute, our friend technician Yannick will give us a small tour of the current condition of the car. So, I guess, let's jump into it. One of the first steps we wanted to do was to start the car. But since this engine didn't run for more than 3 years, we don't know whether the petrol inside the tank is still good, we don't know how the oil inside the engine looks, but we definitely want to rotate the engine a bit to see whether it's not seized, because we don't know that yet. Yeah, if it turns over, we'll try to connect some power source and try to start it. But that's a lot of work, so let's start. So I just pulled the spark plugs out of this car, and Joseph has carefully inspected them, and we found out they're absolute trash. So our first step was to take the spark plugs out so we could turn the engine over, so that we don't have to fight the compression along the way. Next step is to see whether the oil pump works, and whether fuel gets delivered to the engine. And all these seem to have happened, so that's some good news. So I've put the spark plugs back in. You're liking this, aren't you? I put them back. Well, actually it was Yannick from Racing, but... So I put the spark plugs in, they're already in the engine, and now it's time for the first start in 3 years. And we'll finally hear this car roar. Hopefully. So, let's go. 3, 2, 1, start it. Sounds good. Whoa! It's not even knocking. It runs smooth. Not even knocking. Whoa. This is a functioning car. What a beauty. I think I just shed a tear of joy. Considering there's 3-year-old oil in it, it's sounding pretty good. Of course, right now we will not rev the engine or put any load on it. We just needed to find out whether it runs okay, which it does. So, what's the next step? Well, right now we're going to lift the car up, and we're going to take a look at the condition of the chassis, because if the outside tells us something, it's not ideal. Yeah, just a bit of surface rust. Yeah, you can only put your fist through it, but I guess everybody calls it different. Let's do it. So, how's the suspension doing? That's a good start. Well, you can see it. Well, I can see it's really rusty. So I'm guessing this holds... What does this even hold? Does it hold the axle? No, that's the axle. That's just a holder for this brace. The second one is attached to the chassis here. So in the rear we just have a solid axle. Yeah, and it's attached here and here. It's called a trailing axle. And how are the bushings doing? Well, come here with a camera and you'll see them. So all the bushings are going to be changed because all of them are completely destroyed. Somebody actually changed the rear dampers. The brakes are completely dead. Yeah, of course. The brakes are completely dead. Those are so seized, we can just take them off the car. That's just a piece of junk. Okay, what's next? We have some corrosion here. A classic on this car. I'm going to give Joseph a hammer so he can make some holes. No, why should I poke holes through my car? There's plenty of them here. Look, I'll just make one with a finger. Take a look here. Yeah, just smash it through. Come on, punch a hole. Well, this is a pretty hard moment for me. But this is just made of paper. Look at it, it's just crumbling. Do I even want to continue? Yeah, just go on. Alright, there's way more. Look how much is coming off. You like it, don't you? I mean... Okay, well... So, the side skirts are completely trashed, but there's some good news. The chassis rails that are under them don't look to be in a bad shape at all. But the whole side skirts is coming off. I think the whole thing's trash. And I'm guessing it's going to be similar on the other side, right? Yeah. Yeah, so here's the hole that we could see earlier. So, both of the side skirts need to be refabricated again. What about the exhaust? It's always wonderful when the mechanic starts to laugh, because I don't even need to say anything. We have Remus exhaust in here. So, let's look at the front control arms. Alright, this one is squeaking nicely, so it's going to be torn as well. And you can barely even see the front one. But let's try to exercise it a bit. That one's quite stiff. The sway bar is completely rotten. As always. Go get it sandblasted and we'll know more after that. This axle boot is completely torn. But the other side seems okay. This looks quite okay. Wait, this looks like some wiring ground. Yeah, and there's the same one on the other side. See? Same one's hanging here. I have no idea what it's from. But I'm guessing it's not the best news that both are torn, right? Well, it's hard to even say what they were used for. Okay, so what about leaks and similar stuff? Because I can see it looks a bit leaky in here. Where is it leaking from? The worst thing is, I can't even look in there properly, so I can't tell you where it's coming from. So we'll find that out after we disassemble the whole front suspension, right? We could always try taking some stuff off from the top. But there's something coming out of the transmission. It's leaking near the shifter linkage, but we can't see in there. Right now I can see a pretty oily cable coming from the alternator, and it's really covered in oil, so that's going to be leaking from the top. Oh, you can see it quite nicely from here. It's the valve cover. I'll try to move things around, but it's leaking all the way up there. I don't know if you can see it now, but right now it's quite obvious that it's coming from the valve cover. Well, that's not the best of news, but at least we know what's leaking. On this side, I can't actually see anything. Although I do have a feeling that it's leaking in the same place. What do you mean red silicone? Right here, on these hoses, and on this insulation. There's even some more silicone on the hose above that. Can you see that? Some backyard mechanic was trying something already, but I can't see any more than that. We have to look from the top. Okay, so let's go look at the top. Because I think I'm depressed enough from looking at the underside. Well, it's actually not that bad, but it needs some work. The intercooler looks nice from the outside. If you look in here, you can see how fragile these plastic ribs are. They've just turned to dust. Alright, so we have to replace that. So, we finally found out where the oil was leaking from. It's actually the head gasket. It seems some years, so the oil is leaking from there. So, what's our next step? Well, we're leaving the car here for some more work. But first let's evaluate what we found out today. I'm finally going to put the tools away because I worked a lot today. I've been wrenching since I arrived here. But mainly, we're planning to summarize what condition the car is actually in right now. Because it might have looked quite tragic. So, I'm guessing you're interested what we found out today. You've been under the car, so what did you find? Well, it's actually better than I expected. Because you can see all the rust from standing next to the car. The side skirts are completely rusted, so it's just like they aren't even there. But, more importantly, the frame rails are rigid. So that's the good news. We only need new side skirts. And well, since we're planning for this to be our show car, and you could have seen how we're planning to make a body kit in the previous episode, I'd call it an advantage that we don't have to deal with the size cuts. So we found out that the mileage of this car might not be the biggest problem of it. How much did it make? 115,000 kilometers. The question is whether that's real. Well, there's also an oil change sticker with the mileage at 156,000. So I'm guessing it's safe to say that the mileage has been tampered with. But currently, this car's biggest enemy is the time. Everything in the suspension that was made of rubber has turned to dust. So logically, all the bushings have to be replaced. And we were actually planning on this. All of the bushings are going to be replaced. We'll have all the suspension components powder coated, and we'll have to get rid of the dampers and the brakes, because those are completely busted. But overall, the car is a bit better than I expected. Yeah, it's actually better. The engine started and it's not knocking at all. And yeah, there's some old spark plugs, but we'll change all those with the gaskets. I'm counting on us finding more things that's wrong with the car when we take the engine out. And we still don't know how's the transmission. So let's hope we won't end like me and my Yaris, where the transmission needs to be rebuilt. Anyways, the goals for this car in a few next episodes are going to be getting this car mechanically sorted, so that we can take it to Slovakia, where our not-so-mysterious racing driver, Risho Gonda, will sit behind the wheel and set a brand new lap time. And based on that reference lap time, we can later say by how much the modifications have helped our PT Cruiser. Of course, we'll start with the brakes and the suspension, because those are the easy upgrades. Feel free to leave your guesses about the lap time of this car on the Slovakia in the comments below, but that point is quite far away from now. There's a whole lot of work that needs to be done to get to that point. It's like with the Corolla. We started to disassemble it, but we're still pretty far away from taking it to the ring. I'm looking forward to that. In the next episode, we're going to look at the mechanics, and I'm hoping you'll stick around to see the next one. See ya!